Well, it's time for the Oscars, which means it's time for my annual one-sentence reviews of Best Picture nominees. Honora! If your boyfriend thinks it should win Best Picture, maybe ask him why. It's like Cinderella meets Pretty Woman and then turns into The Godfather meets Why Him meets The Hangover meets Home Alone. There was so much about wealthy Russians in this movie, I half expected Trump to show up. You've never laughed more at a scene where a woman's being tied up, hopefully. Wow, that sounded bad out of context. The Brutalist, a title no doubt assigned to this movie based on its runtime. I believe a movie involving the Holocaust that is so long it requires an intermission is legally required to be nominated for Oscars. A Complete Unknown. Anyone else not know that this is the title for the Bob Dylan movie at first and wondered why they cast the obscenely famous Timothée Chalamet in this movie? Anyone else figure out that this was the title for the Bob Dylan movie and wondered why they cast the obscenely famous Timothée Chalamet in this movie? If you want a comprehensive, historically accurate look at the life of Bob Dylan, look somewhere else. But this should entertain you sometimes. Conclave. If the title, The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, was somehow both too exciting and not religious enough for you, this one's for you. A movie that watched the end of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and thought, what if a simply written speech could solve a political squabble, but on an Oscars level? A movie that overwhelms you with so much man talk that when a woman finally gets to speak for a little bit, it becomes such a revolutionary idea by that point that it gets an Oscar nomination. A movie that seems like the Christian right would love on paper, but hate by the end of it. Which kind of makes me like it more. Dune Part 2. A movie that everyone said to see in theaters, but I was glad I didn't see in theaters because it's not really socially acceptable to be scrolling on Wikipedia the whole time to understand this lore I'm not really interested in. Should be a great time for people who wish that Jesus was actually white. The most unrealistic movie I've ever seen. Timothée Chalamet didn't get one sunburn. The prophecy I'm much more interested in is that of Austin Butler as he realizes his destiny of succeeding Tom Hardy as the actor who always plays characters with weird voices. Amelia Perez. A movie that TikTok convinced you to hate because of one bad song, when you should really watch it for yourself so you can hear all the other bad songs. If you ever wanted to see what it would look like if Baz Luhrmann half-assed a movie, this is probably it. If you're afraid to dislike this movie because you don't want to seem transphobic, don't worry, there's a lot of other reasons to dislike this movie. A movie that proves that trans representation in Hollywood is moving forward. At a very glacial pace. Very. If you somehow weren't convinced that the Oscars aren't a popularity contest by now, this should confirm it for you. I'm Still Here, the international movie that nobody saw but everybody's rooting for, just so Amelia Perez wins less awards. I bet Brazil is very confused that the American Academy of Film is honoring this condemnation of authoritarianism right after putting their own authoritarian back in charge, and after America helped install the authoritarianism that led to this movie in the first place. Nickel Boys. If you're wondering if this film is an easy watch, well, it has black main characters, it takes place in the past, and it's nominated for Best Picture, so no. If you ever saw Hardcore Henry and wished that that style of filmmaking was applied to a story that actually mattered, give this one a shot. Or if you saw Paranormal Activity but wished that all the scary stuff was real. The Substance. A movie that shames the way we treat aging women in show business and America in general, that's being honored at an awards ceremony that's no doubt going to be full of look how beautiful she still is and she hasn't aged at all. Just when I thought I was done with Dennis Quaid, just when I thought I could pigeonhole him into the conservative Christian film category, he gives me this, which makes him the best actor at forcing you to like him. The Eyes of Tammy Faye won Best Makeup for making Jessica Chastain's eyes look like Tammy Faye Baker's. And this movie might win a Best Makeup Oscar for making Margaret Qualley's eye give birth to a boob. Wicked! The most fun movie on the list, which means it's not going to win. The film that establishes the fun new tradition of not giving a Best Director nomination to John M. Chu for a musical adaptation, and nominating the director of a worse musical instead. A Broadway musical that took so long to adapt that the story now has a been there, done that kind of feel to it, owing to how many times Hollywood borrowed from the story since the musical premiered. They knew exactly who they cast to play Glinda when they included a scene where a woman of color expresses herself with an art style completely unique to her, and everyone only likes it when Ariana Grande does it. So that's it. Enjoy the Oscars, everyone. If you're wondering what my pick for Best Picture is, I'm gonna go with My Old Ass. I know it's not nominated, it's my pick.